Good evening. Welcome to the January 27th, 2025 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. We will, let's see, we don't actually have any board members on remote tonight. Our Prabhu, who is normally remote, is not able to attend the meeting with us. So the board members are all here in person, so I can actually avoid a roll call, calling the roll.
Yeah.
And of course, online on Zoom with us, we do have our town planner, Fiona Coughlin,
Present.
and assistant planner, Natalia Allward.
I wonder if Fiona could tilt her camera down a little way so we can see. There we go. She has a chin too.
Okay. So, proceeding with our agenda, the first agenda item, as always, is public input. If anyone here in the room or on Zoom wishes to speak to a matter that is not on the board's agenda for this evening, now would be the time to raise your hand and we'll give you a chance to speak. I don't see any raised hands in the room. Don't see any raised hands. I see Fiona's hand raised on Zoom.
Thanks, Dave. Did we do an official roll call or just I just want to make sure that we're covering that base.
With everybody in person, we're not required to do an official roll call.
Okay.
You're required to establish that all the players can hear and be heard. And so you had to. It's not a roll call. It's a checking all the participants. At least that's the way it was written back in
the day.
Back when this thing
Yeah.
was started.
But yes, in any case, yeah, we are allowed to dispense with that when everybody's in person.
Okay.
Votes generally will be taken, some votes need to be taken by roll call in any case, but we'll deal with those when the time comes. So with no public input, we'll proceed to our action item agenda. The first action item being an approval not required at 12 Morgan Drive. So, Fiona, you wanna-
Mr. Chair, I can do a brief intro. I believe there's a couple of folks that I think there's a representative in the room, and I think there's also somebody that I need to promote on Zoom. So I'm going to do that now. But in the meantime, I'll just give an overview briefly. The board might recall seeing something similar to this last year, to do the opposite of what they're trying to do this evening. This evening, the applicant is splitting parcels into number 8 and number 12 Morgan Drive. Number 8 indicated by the name Lot A on the plan, and 12 Morgan Drive being labeled as Lot B. Both lots meet minimum frontage and area requirements of the zone. I did, we did a review of this, of a draft plan, noted a couple of nits, sent it back to the applicant's engineer, who turned those around for us, and we have no issues. There's been a lot of movement in this area in terms of lot lines, adjustments, and I think that this is probably the final configuration, but I will let the applicant and their team speak to that. And I think that's Mr. Stefanik is on.
Yeah, good evening. My name is Jeff Stefanik. I'm a land surveyor with Gary and Halnon, and I'm representing the Marino family. We're asking for approval for the A&R plan. The lots meet the requirements. This lot existed a year ago, but the Marino family combined those. And we're here basically separating them again in a slightly different shape than had existed in the past.
Okay. I will note that while the board approved an A&R last July, that A&R was never recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So the A&R that is now before us, at least when I looked it up yesterday at the Registry of Deeds, there was I could find no record of it actually having been recorded.
Excuse me, I believe that plan is recorded. It's Plan Book 978, Plan 7 set. was recorded in July 2024.
Okay. Oh, I know. I probably looked at the wrong place at the registry, so sorry about that. But yes, so this is basically returning it to a two-lot configuration with one of the lot lines slightly different from what it was before that last summer's A&R.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the board finds approval is not required and directs staff to do the appropriate documentation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declare motion carried unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
I'll be in touch in regard to the Mylar.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alrighty. Next action item is approval of the planning board annual report. Fiona has uploaded to the meeting materials a draft annual report for the planning board. I'll ask the
I
board
move
for-
we approve it.
Second.
Moved and seconded that this be approved. Any discussion? I will.
I get to vote tonight, so that's why I'm seconding everything. I'm just
Well,
going,
he has to,
I'm going crazy.
no, yeah, but you only on certain place.
Seconds are
I
fine.
did notice that though,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because I don't know, I don't know.
So one question for the board. Toward the very end of the draft report, there's a listing of various other committees that board members are participating on.
Oh,
And a question for the board is, Bob and I are also on the IT committee, which is not listed in the board's report. Does the board want us to be listed on there? It doesn't necessarily have to be an exhaustive list.
let me see.
Depends on whether you want it on your resume or not, Dave.
I
Well, why is it even required, but wait a second. Let me look at it.
so my opinion is based on the wording that is in our report. I'd say yes, but I lean toward really the only useful ones are for this report is the ones that the planning board delegates ourselves to. In my mind.
Yes, if it would not be inappropriate for this to list other boards that our members are participating on in their role as planning board members.
Right.
In which case I would leave off my position on the housing authority, since that is not connected to the planning board in any way.
Yeah, I think this looks okay.
Everybody comfortable leaving it as
I'm
presented by the
comfortable leaving it the way it
planner?
is.
Move the question.
With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Declare motion carried unanimously. That was an easy one. We now have sometime before 7:30 our public hearing time. So we can move on to our discussion agenda. Preparation for town meeting, basically zoning bylaw amendments that we are at some stage of working on for the May annual town meeting. First one would be the wireless bylaw amendment. That's still, I think it's a work in progress, but this is sort of, I don't know what exactly, if Fiona, you want to say something about where we're at with that and what you would like the board to be considering this evening?
Sure. So I took the comments. So the board, I think the last time that we discussed this was the December meeting, and we skipped over it for the 13th and decided to kind of regroup because it was lower priority compared to the ADU discussion. So we're back again. This configuration that I have uploaded to the meeting materials is my another revision that I had done to the text to incorporate the feedback from the last meeting, which was basically, if I'm remembering correctly, take away the kind of where Dave, the Isotrope Wireless rather, was kind of opining and remove the references that suggest removing the about board's authority to kind of dictate setbacks and visual aspects of placement of these types of facilities, and just kind of keep it to the technical updates that are required. So I went through and did that. My strike throughs and additions are in green. That really didn't change, and the blue was what Isotrope had suggested. And I, based on my kind of research and the direction of the board from the last time, it's what I left in. So I'm really kind of looking at this stage of the game to get some understanding from the board on what they think of this markup. But I also want the board to be aware that I reached out about trying to get on a select board agenda to discuss the small wireless facilities, because I think that we do need to get more consensus from the select board if that's something that they want to do. I haven't been able to do that. I'm still working with the TA's office on it, but I did pull some samples from other communities for a reference, because I think that if I'm remembering correctly, one of the things that was mentioned was that, which communities are doing this and kind of how are they doing this. So I pulled Lennox, Boxborough, Burlington, Melrose, and then an example from Shrewsbury. So, communities, long story short, is they are implementing oversight over small wireless. They are including it in their zoning. And, I'm happy to, again, the draft, the markup that we have that Dave Maxon's edits, I think that it covers it. And he's a wireless expert. But if there's something that needs to be added to the small wireless section, I'm happy to do it. If the board wants me to continue to push to get on a select board agenda and talk about it, I'm happy to do that too. But yeah, I guess I'm just looking for at this stage the board's thoughts and if we're ready to formulate this into an advanced draft for town meeting.
All right. I'm not sufficiently skilled to do blue, green, and red and guessing what we actually end up with very well, especially on my computers. What was mostly I think that based on what we know, that we don't want to try to do the small,
Small wireless facilities.
small wireless facilities. There were some comments about we really need to understand it quite a lot better. Oh, I think you made some comments.
I made some comments on
Yeah.
that.
So I'd go there, and I just saw a reference to Telecommunications Act of 1996. Was it 96? I thought it was 94 or something like that. Anyway, just there was one around 84 that got us all going on this. So anyway, if we can do it without the small facilities part, come back when.
As I recall, kind of along that line, as I recall, one of the preferences the board expressed when we discussed it back in December was we wanted to avoid introducing or making some substantive sort of changes, changes in setbacks and things. And we wanted to be able to present this to town meeting as basically a series of technical updates, housekeeping, that sort of thing, and small wireless kind of gets into the territory of introducing something new.
New as far as the law goes, and also new as far as 99% of the people at town meeting, probably, most of them have never seen one, or have never even been aware that they exist.
Yeah, I mean, there is Yeah, I think I had expressed, my preference at the last meeting was
Right.
to,
Leave.
eventually we want to accommodate small wireless, but my preference was to make that a lower priority than some of the other things. And I think that's still sort of where I am at with that.
Well,
That I think ultimately we do want to include that, but if we want this Maytown meeting to be updating the bylaw without changing anything substantive, really,
I think,
details.
I think we pretty well covered that ground, and might wanna see a little less red, white, and blue layout, but otherwise, let's just get it going.
Yeah, and I did have a few suggestions in my comments, which
Yeah.
I wrote these comments before Fiona made the update that she's now posting, the December 23rd update. But I think I still kind of stand by my comments as suggestions of further work. But anyway, Fiona's hand is up.
Yeah, that was my point, actually, Dave, just to follow up. You did provide great comments, and this version, that's the PDF that with the colors does not include Dave's comments. And I think that the next revision would be a lot less colorful of a draft with Dave's edits incorporated, just to make life easier for the board. So I'm happy to do that. And one other point that I wanted to just make clear is Bob had mentioned kind of reaching out to CMRPC to see if there was additional analysis that we could or an expertise that we could tap into on there, and they didn't have anybody who's specialized in this type of thing. It is pretty niche, so I just wanted to. I did upload something to the record too, but I just wanted Bob, and the board to know that I did reach out to them. So, but yeah, I mean, if it needs continue to, it seems like, for the most part, the board is comfortable with this. But if anybody did want me to reach out to other groups and try and get quotes or something and analyze further, I can. But it's just just wanted to point that out.
I think the base is pretty well covered. We can,
Yeah.
Right,
At this
so-
stage, I'm not sure what we get out of it. Trying to get an additional organization size or extra quotes. I think.
So on the parts of it that I think we do want to go forward with, would the board's direction be for Fiona to sort of, to kind of go through and consolidate the comments a bit and come up with something that is, at least in Bob's sense, sort of easier to read?
so moved.
And so with that in mind, besides the comments that I've already provided, and Fiona posted in the meeting materials, does anybody at this point have any other suggestions?
Keep it simple. Keep it as simple, but no simpler.
Okay, so I'll take it as consensus of the board. As we've discussed, Fiona will update the draft, and the board can review it at the next opportunity, and hopefully we'll be close to nailing it down. Anything else on that? Okay, Fiona, you're clear on where the board wants to go next with this?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. So the next one, we just started talking about this at the previous meeting, the noise and odor bylaw. So Fiona has posted to the meeting materials essentially the Medway bylaw with Fiona's suggested edits to it. And I think we still have a ways to go before we all kind of can digest it and become comfortable with it. But we can talk about how we want to proceed with this. So Fiona, your hand is up. You want to start this?
Sure. So one thing that just to be clear, so I took us, I did an initial review of this, obviously, and compare, looked through based on my expertise and my research and did a markup with suggestions and things for the board to consider. So I didn't start really delving into significant edits, because I think we need to think bigger picture about implementing something like this and what it's going to look like, who's going to monitor it. And when you really start to peel back the onion, there's a lot involved, and it's a very sophisticated body of work. And I think it's great, but I also think that there's discussions that need to be had with myself and the building inspector and DPW and whoever else would be involved in this in some sort of way. And I also would really like to be able to reach out to other planners and other communities and just kind of pick their brain about, okay, you have this bylaw, is it effective? How do you enforce it? Has it been challenging to enforce? It's et cetera, et cetera. And I haven't been able to do that. I did want to try and have Evan looped in too, because he really is kind of being the point of contact on behalf of the select board. And I also did make a suggestion that somebody from the select board should probably address the planning board as well at a future meeting, because this really is a policy, like a policy level decision. And I just want it to be clear that like the planning board is taking direction from an elected I'm sorry, from another body in town, and it's really, you know, if that group is feeling passionate about it, I think it's important that we kind of understand what they want and make sure that that's clear, because we're just going to look at it from a technical lens, and it might not be what and we might not be capturing what the desired goal is. So I think that this is a work. Long story short is I think this is a work in progress. I think I'm going to keep trying to advocate for a select board rep to come and speak to us and try and conduct some meaningful interviews and just bring that feedback to the board. This is something that it might be fall. I mean, I can't guarantee that we'll get anything done for spring. There's a lot involved in this one.
Yep, as I recall from our discussion at the last meeting, Fiona, you and Evan were going to try to find sample bylaws from other municipalities besides the Medway one we've been looking at. So we're kind of waiting to see what else you can dig up on that. Just to reinforce, I'm very interested in learning about other towns' experience with a bylaw like this or similar to this, and how it works. You kind of went over all that, Fiona. So that, yeah, I'm not ready to look at this in a lot of detail until we have more of that kind of information. And I think you're right. This is not something I'm going to assume we'll be able to prepare for the Maytown meeting, but it's, if we don't work on it, we'll never be ready to take it to town meeting.
Right. And I did look at other communities. A lot of them were examples of cities, and I really I struggle with comparing ordinances to bylaws personally. Maybe that's a personal problem, but I would love to find some more local, like smaller town examples of, and like really talk to people who are staffed similarly to Grafton and see how this works. Because I think it's all well and good to have something passed, but it's actually making sure that it's effective is the important thing. So
It'd be nice to to adopt a bylaw that we have reason to believe can actually be and you know, we have evidence that basically say from other towns saying, yeah, we've done something like this and it works. Or sometimes you find out we tried something like this and well, the way we wrote it, it really doesn't work. So I don't know that we would in Grafton here would like to adopt something that is kind of known not to work well.
Well,
right.
I think there are two parts of this. Is, you know, you're talking about policy and that, and then I'm looking at on the technical side. This doesn't look like it was written by someone who is on top of the technical side. You know, I said this before. We start with definitions of hertz and decibel, and we're already in trouble as far as I'm concerned. I think maybe some of the how you measure and what you measure and whatnot may have an example on the state side, because the state has some regulations on at least some of this. So I'd start there and see how they craft a bylaw or a law about this, or regulation, whatever they are, CMR.
Yeah, that would be regulation.
Yeah, and I think one other thing to consider, if you're gonna follow the path of the main example here, they refer to, the building commissioner a lot.
Oh,
So that's, I guess if it's gonna be the building inspector, whoever's going to be actually charged with enforcement. And then the other question that came to my mind is like, will they have this equipment on hand? Will they be able to take a measurement or not?
Right.
Right? Because it seems like here they're saying, oh, the person goes down and does an observation. It's not really that descriptive. So they just go down there and listen or smell as a human being and say there's a problem or there isn't. Then, you know, I mean, I guess that I get the aspiration here is that there are thresholds. And when somebody complains, you go and look and say it is above or below the threshold, and then the person either gets to carry on doing whatever they do, or they have to change based on that measurement. But I guess part of, I think what everybody's getting at here is when you go to enforce it, if it's the building inspector or whoever, are they going to have the olfactometer or whatever the machine is that's referenced here to take the measurement? And will they be able to, probably to Bob's point, take it in a legitimate way? So that it has standards and it's not just like a one-time, random sample or something like that. So I know that needs to get sorted out in the future, but if it's going to be the building inspector, maybe we need to talk to whoever we think would be doing enforcement.
we have, I've been told, we do have a more or less adequate, sound level meter, which is for the DBAs, not the DBs. Well, you can do both. As I understand it, we don't have the smell tool, and the odds of, I think you might wanna bring in a, consultant who has one and knows what he's doing if the question comes up there. I think this needs a lot more work. I'm not, I used to work for someone who measured noise in an industrial setting, and I used to write software that drew graphs of it and all of that. So I have some sensitivity to it. But until you get hertz and decibel and dBA to find more to my satisfaction, we're not going anywhere. Or I'm not.
Yeah, let's say there's some work still to do on this.
Besides A, there's a whole lot of other dB mumbles.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, there are some very technical details, and there are some more
And we're
fundamental.
a lay board trying to write.
Yeah, this
I do think that we want to try to give the town a handle on dealing more with these problems, because we've seen that they're problems. But
this
we're
is
not
where,
quite
right,
there yet.
Right. This is where we would like to draw on experience and draw on the practical aspects of it. But we don't. I would prefer not to try to invent this wheel. If we can, why reinvent the wheel if you can find one that'll work? Okay, so again, we'll continue working on this. Fiona will continue to do some research as time and resources permit, and we'll try to move this forward. But it will be ready for town meeting when it's ready, and not a moment sooner.
I don't think in the next 12 months it'll be ready.
The
I don't think in the next 12 months it'll be ready.
Well, I'm quite sure for spring.
Well, there's
There's
a lot
a
of
chance.
there's a lot of things here. So
Yeah.
you're talking about equipment to measure noise and equipment to measure a smell, and who's going to buy that, and who's going to pay for it, and how do we revert that back to the person who is creating this? So this isn't it's just not somebody with a stereo going loud or anything like that. This is noise bylaws. I mean noise complaints I remember two, one at Holden's and the other one at the post office pub, which was back in the
Yep.
90s.
Yep.
And you know, it's not neither one was a simple solution. It really wasn't. It really wasn't. Everybody wanted to help resolve the problem, but it's not an easy solution. And I'd be amazed that we could put together something, you know, without the board having the board of selectmen or select board, still not doing that right. Without their input, because it's a policy. It will be on top of the noise and pollution policy that's currently written. So there is a noise policy.
Oh, well, maybe it would be good for us to get a copy of it.
Yeah, well, it's not that big a deal, but it's, you know.
Well, but
it is,
I'd like
it
to
is-
know what we're,
It is there, and again, when you're talking about hiring someone to measure a sound or to interpret a smell, who's gonna pay for that?
Yeah, and
So that, all that has to be involved in this whole thing, that, you know, if we get a complaint about noise, and it's a constant complaint, it's not a party on a Sunday afternoon in somebody's backyard, you know, then,
and this board has also heard a few things that came up in the last year, maybe two now, about noise and such regarding a permit on Donahue Lane and a permit relating to geese. The permit for geese, for the goose,
The geese,
the geese.
oh, the geese.
the backyard.
well, that was
geese.
me, I was playing at Highfields that day.
No.
All right, so continue to work on this, however long it takes to do something that we can convince ourselves really can work, or has a good chance at working.
So moved.
So, we'll continue. Just to wrap up this, Fiona had on the agenda too, town meeting next steps. Anything you wanted to say about that at this point? This is kind of an informational document showing the process for getting something through, you know, town
Yeah,
meeting,
I-
which some of us
I
know, and
don't.
some of us may, you know, newer people may not be as familiar with that process.
Yeah, I don't. I like the document. I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful for the public to also have an understanding, because I think we see more of these inquiries of, you know, people trying to submit citizens petitions and boards and committees trying to petition the planning board to sponsor an article. I think it's just helpful for the board to get a refresher, as well as the public to see, you know, this is the typical process. The CPTC training was super helpful. I mean, I know this process, but it was lovely to get a refresher, and I definitely recommend it. And that was just one of the materials from that. So nothing more to add. Excuse me.
I noticed, the point I made, that the article is supposed to go to the select board, then come back to our office to be scheduled. And we usually don't quite do it that way. But that's what I remembered from the law.
Technically,
We've
that-
been a stickler about that. I have been. I can't speak to before times for me, but
It's
we
handy
definitely
to have
I've
that
been-
and remember it, so as to push back when you're trying to push back your date, so that you're a little more pushing, you know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
You have the general idea. Okay,
Okay, it is 7:34. It is public hearing time. And in the interest of expediency, our second and third public hearings, 77 Snow Road and 98 Worcester Street, the applicant has requested a continuation to February 10th. So if we can get those out of the way, we do have a written request for a continuation from the applicant.
I move that the board grants the applicant's written request to continue until February 10th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. for both 77 Snow Road and 98 Worcester Street.
second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare the motion carried unanimously. And now we have our public hearing, continuation of the public hearing for a special permit and site plan approval for a common driveway at 23 Rear and 25 East Street. So I believe we have here representing the applicant is Norman Hill. Fiona, do you want to start this off by bringing us up to date on where we are from your perspective?
Sure. So thanks, Mr. Chair. So essentially where we left off, it's been about a month since we reviewed this, but the board's reviewed the application. The board had comments about the site plan and wanted the applicant's engineer to adjust some things, including adding measurements, and specifications, and kind of get a more realistic picture of what the site is going to look like, if approved. The applicant's engineer did turn in a revised sheet that was uploaded to the record, with some additional details. That is exhibit 29. In the meantime, I've also been doing some work on my end. The applicant's engineer turned in a specification sheet that includes information about the crossing that is going to be utilized as a primary means of ingress and egress to the site. The fire department reviewed that and did not have any concerns about the spec sheet. And I had been kind of continuing to nudge the fire department, as has Norman, for the past month. They've been swamped, understandably, but I think that the goal for myself, and just a reminder that there's a comment in Grave Engineering's report, and based on just viewing the site from the site walk, we were concerned about the ability for fire to get in and around the site. I received an email today that the fire department can do what they need to do from the roadway, and they are okay. So I think at this stage of the game, the loop with the fire department is closed, and they wouldn't enter the site to fight in an emergency. I don't know logistics of firefighting, so I didn't want to make that assumption that it can be dealt with from the roadway, but we do have a written confirmation from the chief. So I'm happy to answer any other questions about anything that's unfolded since the last hearing. But those kind of major outstanding concerns, from the staff perspective, were chased down. So
Remind me, there are hydrants there, aren't there?
Oh, it's hydrants on East Street, yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yep.
they wouldn't have to pump water.
No.
Which would be easier to go in.
So,
No, you can't get close to that with a truck.
Yeah.
So, Dave, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
yes, sir.
Fiona, on this, and maybe it was here before, but we've got lot 1 and lot 2 and then parcel A.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Norm can answer it, or Fiona can answer it. What is parcel A? Wasn't that?
Sure. So I can, and I'll have Norm also step in, but parcel A is a non-buildable lot that basically encompasses the water by Hayes Pond. Sorry, I don't have the plan right in front of me at the moment. I have too many tabs open, but it's a non-buildable parcel that was created by the applicant. So it's really,
parcel A takes into account the dam and the spillway and all of that.
Yeah, so that is right. The dam and everything associated with it is on parcel A, correct, Norm?
Yes.
Yep, okay.
Yeah, and there is an easement for access to parcel A. That's an existing easement, correct?
Yes. I'd like to take a minute and point out the changes we made to the plan. If you were to stand in the street and look at the existing duplex, there's an existing driveway north of that to the right side of the duplex. That driveway is to be loomed and seeded and abandoned. The plan now states that. It also shows a brown rectangle where the existing garage is located, and that is the area where the future house would be built. And the third change we made, in a darker gray, I think Fiona had requested that we put in 3 additional inches of pavement. So that darker gray will receive 3 inches of top coat as requested. So we've made those 3 changes, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Yes, I think the board was asking for a little bit, some sufficient detail on the plan to show exactly where the common driveway was. And as everybody at the board had a chance to look at this, and does that meet your expectations?
Does something here, it's hard to see the plan on my screen. Does something here tell us what the dotted red line is supposed to represent?
Yes, that is the boundary of the easement, and the bearings and distances for that appear on the second sheet. So that red line is the bearings and distances of the common driveway boundary. So the pavement shown is 18 feet wide, and then there's a couple other areas that are going to be paved wider, but 18 feet goes in to the right and then up.
And is there something that says that the driveway will be on that dark gray portion within the red dashes?
Yes, at the beginning, where you first enter, if you look sideways, there's a notation there that states that that's to be paved with 3 inches of asphalt 18 feet wide.
Mr. Chair, I can't seem to find my raise hand, but I just wanted to. Norman, you're saying that on sheet 2, we only received 1 sheet?
Yeah.
The second sheet was that A&R sheet that would create this easement and cut this into 2 lots in a parcel. So the
Okay.
second sheet has not been officially submitted. I gave you unofficial copies of that, but that has the bearings and distances for the red lines on it. So that sheet would actually, when that sheet got recorded, then this easement would be recorded, the bearings and distances for this easement.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure there wasn't a sheet missing from.
And I'd like to point out too that we have not submitted that A&R plan officially yet, because once we do, we've only 21 days. So I'd like to perhaps submit that tomorrow if the board should vote this approved tonight.
It feels a little bit of a chicken and egg problem to me here, where, I was looking for some actual distancing on this, on this dark gray, portion, or at least the easement portion for the site plan, and I don't have that. I know you're saying it's on the A&R plan, but it doesn't help us to, say how long is this driveway? Where is, at its shortest point, is it within it? Is it 18 feet wide as depicted, or is it need to be depicted bigger? Or, I can understand logically what you're trying to do here, but seeing it as, okay, well, where is this actually? Is the entirety of the spots that's supposed to be, has that been regraded 3 inches, 3 inches extra in there, etc. And how do we validate that? That's kind of where I'm coming from right now. Does that make sense, Norm?
Your vote could be conditional upon that plan getting recorded and have it at that plan showing all the details you're looking for. I mean, if you don't receive that plan, it doesn't get recorded, then your vote tonight would be null and void.
I'm not quite, did you say that if the A&R plan doesn't match this, then the approval of this is no?
Yes.
Because I thought the last condition I saw was if the A&R isn't approved, then this is null and void.
Yes.
The requirements to approve an A&R don't say anything about having to match something else. The chickens and the eggs are. But
Natalia has her hand up.
This is helpful, but in the exhibits, Exhibit 12 shows the A&R plan that the draft A&R plan that Norman had submitted with the application.
I don't know what I can't make.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
It's my hearing that's,
Yes, Exhibit 12 is the proposed A&R plan. It consists of 2 sheets, including some, on the second sheet, a lot of lines and measurements.
So, Fiona, from what Mr. Hill had just said, to your current belief is having a condition on this approval that the upcoming submittal of an A&R would match this Exhibit 12. Is that something that is a viable condition from your experiences on that we can actually act with?
Yes, thanks, Justin, for the good question. So the draft that was uploaded as of the 20th, that was vetted by council. So the language in there was previously reviewed. It's like we need to have some sort of security measure in place, I think, for this, because obviously we're not getting the level of specificity that the board is asking for. So we need to make sure we can include that condition, and we have. And council has not flagged that. And actually, I think it was council's suggestion. So
I'm not at all sure that the whole layout of the driveway on this proposed A&R matches what's on the new drawing, particularly up towards the top, whatever that is, north. But, and beyond that, I don't know whether I can combine these without seeing them on paper.
Mr. Chair, Norm, the dotted lines, that's the common driveway.
Yes.
Yeah, and the dock area is the travel lane.
Well, that's where my client has agreed to add 3 inches of pavement.
So it's a
top coat.
So it's a
The
travel
entire-
lane. It's a travel lane.
Yeah, the entire area in gray is already paved.
Yeah.
But he's agreed to add another 3 inches in that darker gray area.
So, I mean, I did see an issue with this before, but I don't see an issue with it now. Not at all. You know, seeing that this parcel A, you know, has taken the dam and the sluiceway and everything out of the picture.
Yes.
You know, I'm not sure what the status of that's gonna be, but that really is not before this board. I mean, I don't have a problem with this.
I can't hear you.
I can't talk any louder, Phil. Good to see you.
So,
I said I didn't have any problem with it.
Oh, all right.
So again, what we have before us is a proposed special permit for a common driveway, which is essentially a prerequisite for allowing the board to approve the A&R.
Right.
You know, and some of our discussion has basically been looking for consistency between the two, particularly in terms of the location of the common driveway.
Yep.
And I think I understood Fiona to say that council has weighed in on this, and council has basically suggested that the way to resolve this sort of interdependence is, refresh my memory, Fiona, for the special permit for the common driveway to be conditioned on the approval of the A&R.
correct. The
That
access,
matches-
A&Rs
that
need to
matches.
have
Yes.
access established.
Yeah.
It's one of the few things that need to be confirmed for an A&R to be approved. So there is no A&R without the common driveway. And that's why we arrived at this situation. And I believe that there was an email forwarded to the board. I'm not 100% sure if it's in the record, but there was a confirmation of this process, and the way that we have to do it is this way.
Me skimming the draft from December 20th, all I'm noticing is, as Bob had noticed, is this is not valid without an approved and endorsed A&R, but I didn't catch anything that says the plan that we looked at today has to match what is on the upcoming A&R for this to be valid.
Yeah, it doesn't say that. Sorry, I don't have a better answer. I can check with council if they have to match exactly. I don't know that. This is a weird situation, and
Yeah.
I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so we, there is a draft decision that was written back last year. And I think, the point is probably well taken, that the board would like to be sure that the decision that we finally approve, assuming we approve it, has some basically guarantees that the common driveway plan we're approving through the special permit is gonna match up with the A&R plan.
But because that's a condition in the decision, we could close the hearing, because it doesn't require any new information.
That's kind of where I was headed with my thinking here.
Yeah,
that
well,
if we have all the information we need, and we don't expect any more information to be submitted as part of the special permit hearing, and if we don't have any questions left, then the hearing could be closed, and the board could plan on reviewing and voting on the draft decision at the next meeting.
I move to close the public hearing.
I'm not sure, well, someone might second that, and then I'll make my comment.
I'll second, and we can go to
All right,
division.
having all,
And come to think of it,
I think I lost what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
An expectation of getting it is different than having, but,
Yeah. So, I have a kind of a procedural question is,
That's
I heard Ray make a motion, but the chair never officially designated Ray to substitute for a board member during the hearing, and in fact, I don't recall that comes into play except when it's for voting on a decision.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the procedure.
as soon as the need arises, it's not a, designate him.
So, all right.
Designate him.
I will officially designate Ray to act as a board member for the purposes of the
Thank
discussion
you.
tonight.
Now, did you make a motion, Ray?
I did.
I seconded it.
Now Ray made the
And did
the
you-
chair will officially recognize Ray's motion in the second.
I move the question.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Their motion carried. This hearing is closed. I'm assuming the board would like
So moved.
the draft, the draft decision to be staff to finalize the draft decision, bring it back to the board at our next meeting.
So
Should
moved.
be straightforward next meeting.
Thank you. I'll bring over that A&R
So
tomorrow.
moved. We usually include that in the,
Yes.
All set.
What do they just,
They're planting new grass next to your house,
okay,
okay?
So-
it sounds good.
There you go.
Game for it. Take care.
See you, Phil.
So, I heard a motion to direct staff to complete the drafting of the decision.
Do we usually motion that?
we customarily have that as part of the motion to close.
Oh,
Yeah, we
sure.
fairly typically move to close the hearing and direct staff to draft a decision.
Fair. I'll second.
Yeah. In this case here, a draft of the decision has already been started but not completed. So, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry, motion carried unanimously. get this one off our plate almost. Fiona will work on completing the draft decision based on everything that we've talked about, and
We'll get to approving it
take
or
that up,
considering approval of it.
take that up at our next meeting. So we're all done with our hearings for tonight. Move back to general business. We have no bills to approve. We have no minutes of previous meetings to approve. We might have a staff report.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So hold on, let me pull up I have way too many tabs open on one small screen. So we last met, a lot of things are starting to rev up. I think I can mention that at the last hearing, meeting with the board rather on the 13th. We're getting a lot of inquiries from people who are interested in pursuing a type of use on a property, requesting to meet with staff, myself and the building inspector, for all sorts of things. So development team meeting has been starting to rev up. We're onboarding Jack still. He's getting he's getting more used to now that we had a little bit of a lull with applications, but we're starting to see a rev up. So he's getting used to that. And just kind of general training on that end. Continuing to kind of work through obviously town meeting stuff that I can. A lot of it is kind of, as we've discussed this evening, kind of balls in the air, and a lot of additional research and follow-up that needs to be done, which takes some time. So I need to kind of prioritize that over the next few weeks. I did I listened to the EDC's meeting, and Justin might want to speak to that later, but I did do some follow-up for them. They were looking for some information from the planning department, which I provided, and I think we're going to talk through what staffing looks like for them. I did offer to provide staff support to that group because obviously John Allen, when he was employed with the town, was employed through the planning department, and it really is planning and economic development. So it really should be planning, but I think that they've suggested going with the TA's office because they interface a lot with business owners. So we'll see how that shakes out. I am doing a lot of work with the Fisherville Dam project. We got a grant. Folks might be familiar with this. We got a grant in 2023 to do preliminary design and permitting of the Fisherville Dam. Obviously, we want to try and make sure that is secure. It's a high hazard dam. It's a very tricky site. Lots going on there. We're trying to make it as safe as possible for many reasons, but there has been a lot of development interest in Fisherville Mill as well. Pulte being one group that's been kind of inquiring. Nothing has been confirmed, but we have been flagging interest, which is exciting. So we're trying to move the dam work along. Obviously, it's slow going because there's preliminary designs and there's final and then there's construction, and it's going to cost at least $4 million, I'd say. And our grant was only for $187,500. So other than that, I've been I've been doing site visits. I have a few teed up with Graves. We're hoping to close out 7 and 5 Main Street soon. They submitted their final as-built. We're gonna head over there this week. I'm doing a site visit at 55 North Main Street, Truth Spa, which got a permit with us last year. I am just doing a whole bunch of stuff. It's been nothing in terms of the larger scale kind of planning, more kind of day-to-day things. So I think we're still trying to kind of work toward improving our how we interface with the public as well. And it's been slow going because there's a lot of distractions throughout the day, but and also a lot of weird inquiries from people about their property, this obscure thing that happened in an approval from many years ago, and it involves a trip down to the archives that takes a half hour. But anyway, all good things. So we're just kind of we're a lot's getting done. And I think, once we get Jack fully trained up, we'll definitely be able to do even more. So happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Fiona on this? Okay, correspondence. Anything in correspondence catch anybody's eye?
There's
I just,
interesting things in there, but nothing that I really want to dive into tonight.
yep, I just noticed the latest SHI update. One of the things that struck me was that Fisherville Terrace is finally getting back on the SHI now that they're starting to build there. And we have a couple of other projects in the pipeline that hopefully we'll get back on the SHI, but SHI is at 9.6%. And if a couple of these things come to completion, we'll hit 10.
I think even more.
Fiona?
Yeah, we're getting close. I just wanted to include this, and I think it's important to say that the state sends out these letters periodically, and SHI updates are really supposed to be done at certain times, which it's not like a regular thing. I get a lot of requests from the members of the public asking me to submit units for eligibility right away, which I'm happy to do, but I just want to reiterate, it gets very hairy when we're doing it like that. The building department and I have kind of a flow going where once a month we check in with the UHLC and update it. But usually, like, this letter is how it's done, and I had never actually seen the letter. I know that UHLC does this, but I thought it was great to be able to see it and be able to share it with the board members, because the SHI is obviously a hot button issue. And it clearly states, there's a time once the clock starts ticking, you got to get a building permit, and then clock is ticking again for your CO, and things take a long time. So I just thought it was a good thing, and helpful information for everybody, but people who are, because I'm already getting requests about Snow Road and such, and yeah, I think people want, as the second it becomes eligible, get it on there so we can hit the numbers. But sometimes that's not always the wisest thing to do, because it puts the town at risk for the percentage to fluctuate in an unpredictable way.
Yep, I noticed a couple of things a couple of picky details. I'll communicate those to you offline.
Okay.
Nothing that affects anything substantive. The other thing that's of some interest here is the ADU. The state has finally issued formal regulations for ADU. Actually, technically, they'll be issued as of January 31st. And I didn't see a lot of surprises in there. And eventually, we'll be working on them. But as part of the correspondence, I noticed that CMRPC is interested in doing some ADU work on behalf of the towns in their region. So I imagine we'd be more than happy to leverage that.
Yes, we went in for CMRPC reached out to us to support this project, and we are included in the communities that will be benefiting from the work. So they're really gonna help us out when it comes time for us to pursue that in earnest.
And just because we briefly touched on the subject when we were discussing ADUs last time, there was a question about ADUs in the floodplain district and the water supply protection overlay district. And the final regulations kind of confirm that we basically can apply the same regs to ADUs as we do to single family homes in those two overlay districts. Which for us means in the water supply protection, we don't require a special permit for a single family home. So likewise, we would exempt the ADU from the special permit in the water supply protection overlay district. In the floodplain district, we do require a special permit for a single family home. So we would bring an ADU under a similar, there's some picky details about that will need to be worked out. But but we're covered. We're allowed to cover ADUs the same way we cover single family homes. Well,
Right.
there's more detail to work on as we move forward with this, but I'm happy to wait for model bylaws to come out from UHLC and for CMRPC to take those and kind of work together with the communities to get us to a point where we've got something more concrete that we can consider.
Yeah, maybe in that letter, in one of the things that we got, I noticed a sort of a reference that said, for those communities which are starting to work on bylaws, here's some stuff. Obviously thinking some communities might be doing that, but clearly they're not expecting every community to be running forward on it yet.
Yep.
Okay.
That's Fiona, your hand is up.
Yeah, last thing, sorry. I just also wanted to, I didn't get an opportunity to upload this to the correspondence, excuse me, because it came in this morning. But we did receive a letter from EUHLC confirming that we're still complying with MBTA communities in light of the Milton decision. So I'll upload that to the next correspondence so the board can see it, but I thought it should mention that. And I also wanted to say there was a Zoom bomber this evening, and I'm sincerely apologize for the comments that were submitted in the Q&A. Really just awful, and we're going to try and work on addressing the Zoom bomber issue because this is the second time now that we've been dealing with this. So apologies to the public and to the board for that.
Speaking of regulations from EOHEC, though, I may have been in my mind sort of conflating two things because they also, in addition to the ADU regulations, they've got official regulations for MBTA communities.
Yes.
And those regulations, and they had already said this is in light of the Supreme Court's SJC's decision, but they basically already said that towns that were already compliant remain compliant, and that's the letter that Fiona referenced. And other than that, the regs for MBTA communities did not change except for the deadline dates for those communities that have already come into compliance. But that again doesn't affect us.
Nope.
We're already done with that. Anything else in correspondence that anybody wants to talk about? I've talked too much already.
Bob is agreeing. Are you agreeing that he talks too much?
Did you,
Are you agreeing that he
I,
talks too much?
in the hearing aid, just, it's cutting out now.
Bob
Hey,
really
say what?
should agree that I've talked too much.
I should? Well, all right, if I have to.
Yeah. Any
All right.
reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC?
Yeah, so I had my first meeting with the EDC this beginning of this month, I believe it was now. I'm trying to remember what week it was. And I think Fiona covered the biggest takeaways is that they're looking to try to get some staff support now that John Allen's no longer with us. And there's been separate conversations with, Fiona's office and the TA's office to see potentially getting some of that staff support to help out with the meetings and such. And Evan's office and Fiona's office is going to basically figure out who's going to support the EDC. And there's also talk about holding another event like they had last year to bring business into a single location to meet and greet and see what the town can, how we can support the business owners and such better. And then I had a CPC meeting, but there's really not much to report from there at all. We didn't really cover anything planning related.
Nothing much to report from the Open Space and Rec Committee, other than, I think I mentioned this at the previous board meeting, that the Open Space and Rec Committee is doing their annual update of progress on the 65 action items in the Open Space and Rec Plan. I've now received those progress reports from everybody except EDC.
Yes.
Who was a little bit confused about what we were asking for, but we'll get that straightened out.
Yeah, I tried to communicate to what I understood, which I think aligns with what we did here, but it didn't seem to click.
Yeah,
So-
so they'll wrap that up at the next EDC
Yep.
meeting. And we've updated the open space land inventory that will be soon to be posted on the website. Other than that, the Open Space and Rec Committee is pursuing possibly taking some town-owned land that's not currently under Concom control and placing it under Concom control. Fiona's helping us out and we're working on that, so that you'll see some more of that coming up over time.
If it goes into Concom, then what does it take to bring it out?
A 2/3 vote of both houses of the legislature.
That's what I thought.
Yes,
So it's kind of almost a one-way street.
pretty much. And in
And-
fact, technically, it doesn't, even if it's not under Concom control, but certainly if it is under Concom control, it's Article 97 land, but if the town acquired the land and called it open space, that brings it under Article 97, whether we put it under Concom control or not. Article 97 is a whole nother topic. I don't want to get into that tonight. That's interesting, though.
There was something about that. Okay.
So any other reports from planning board representatives on town committee and CMRPC?
Yeah, well, CMRPC, I participated in the Physical Development Committee meeting last Thursday. I think it was last Thursday. Fiona was there for a bit. I think we had 4 different, we were voting the money, the, whatever we call it, DLTA money, how it would be broken up into projects and shared with towns. Grafton was named as at least a participant, a partner, in I think 4 different projects. We managed to approve it unanimously. I may even have made the motion, I have no idea. The staff does a pretty good job. You look, yep, that's what we're looking for the totals to come out to, and, we're in good shape.
Excellent. Is that, anything else? There's nothing else. Any other items which may lawfully come before the board? We probably don't want to vote to extend the duration of the meeting past 10 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. I don't know whether you can do that.
Ray is not eligible to vote in general.
No.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
It's
Moved
not,
and
it's not
seconded that
debatable
this
either.
meeting be adjourned. Motion is not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Declare motion carried unanimous, so we are adjourned.